It's Tuesday, February 28th. This is State of Vape with John and Christina, bringing to you issues, commentary on the vaping industry, and more. Hi everybody, this is John. Started vaping a little over 2 years ago and finally switched and would never look back. Feel better than ever. One of the most amazing things that has happened to me is that I no longer use my asthma pump. I grew up with childhood asthma, and my doctor always said, as long as I smoke, it's never going to go away. And then, lo and behold, one day I switched to vaping. And it was just a CE5 and a Nautilus kit. That's all I needed. 18 milligrams, 50-50 juice. Got off it. Got my sister off it, Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hey. Hi, everybody. I'm Christina, and both my brother and I are vape shop owners, and we decided to start this podcast for all the reasons that my brother just mentioned. We want to talk about things. We want to bring the discussion that often happens, between individuals, in the back store of a shop, here to the table so that we can all have that discussion. There's a lot of information that gets lost along the way, I think, for regular everyday consumers, where we just go over the issues. I haven't seen anything quite like that yet. So,
right. And we are in a bubble, right? I'm sure the vast majority don't even know there's a Bill S5 coming on the way either. So,
yep. You can't organize if you don't communicate first. So there's that.
All right, so let's do it. Episode 1, State of Vape.
The federal laws probably won't change anything provincially for Quebec.
I'm so excited. Can't wait.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how the federal bill plays out, because I'm not holding out an enormous amount of hope, but between November 2015, when the Quebec laws were enacted, and today, there's been an enormous amount of new research, reports, positions, policy adopted, not just by, random people, but by very respected institutions.
Yeah, but I'm extremely concerned if that information is going to get to the right people, because the bad information is getting to them.
Yeah, there's definitely that. Certainly, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that the more credible research is being shared and promoted with the elected officials. But I think, though, to be honest, at the end of the day, this is my personal opinion. I think for the most part, politicians go with whatever is more convenient to the lobby groups that they do business with. So we saw that in Quebec, right? You see it in Quebec, you see it in other provinces. That immediate position, the immediate reaction is always very anti-vaping, without getting the information, without doing the research, and I think that lobby groups have a huge role to play in that. So how can the vaping industry compare with big pharma and big tobacco in terms of our reach, in terms of our clout? It's clear that we're at a disadvantage. So that doesn't surprise me so much. But where the research does come into play is when you do go to court. Because when you go to court, the judges don't, for the most part, base their decisions on what some lobby group is telling them. So they base on the facts that are being presented to them in court. And if you make a good argument that by overly regulating vaping, you're denying Canadians a reasonable option for reducing harm in their lives significantly. So you're denying them health and an option for improved health, then that judge is going to rule, accordingly. That's why I I generally think that we've got a lot more chances in the judiciary than we do in with politicians in the political realm, because they really don't care about the facts when it comes to politics. We all know that, you know?
And I think, I oftentimes I look at all of the various issues that that vaping has to deal with, or people who want to legislate nicotine or vape or whatever the case may be. There are so many issues that you feel sometimes the focus is lost, because you have provinces enacting legislation, you have municipalities enacting legislation. Right there, you have a host of issues. They're treating it like tobacco. They're banning it from use, so we're finding ourselves vaping with the smokers. There's online sales prohibition in Quebec. Some provinces is 18, other provinces it's 19. And so what I'm trying to boil down to is, what are probably like the top 3 things that we should be focused on in terms of making sure that the industry survives? Because we're not going to win all the battles that are ahead, but we might be able to win 2, maybe 3 significant ones.
Right.
And I think the first one is that the one, I don't know if the right term is human rights, or the fact that it's healthier for you, that it's a harm reduction.
Right.
And the fact that people are dying on cigarettes.
Half of people who regularly consume cigarettes will die from smoking.
Which equals make it available. Do not restrict, right?
Exactly.
Is that would that be that would be the number one thing? And that's what I think what you referred to before, the lawyers are going to refer to as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest. It's the most important thing, and it's honestly, I think, the one that we've got the most ammunition for. But having all the ammunition doesn't solve everything if we don't have the means to fight it, right? Because these legal battles are extremely expensive, prohibitively so, and it's not something that gets resolved in 4 to 6 months. It'll be years long. In the meantime, the industry gets devastated. The industry gets painted by the same brush as tobacco products, so it's also given a negative association in the minds of consumers, many of whom are smokers, who avoid it because they think that it's as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than smoking in some cases, and all this stuff. So you worry about whether we end up winning the legal battle, but we lost the war anyways, because of how devastating that time before the judgment comes, how devastating it is to the industry in the meantime.
Oh yeah. It could easily take away half of what exists today.
Yeah.
Half of
it already has in Montreal, right?
Yeah. At least half. So Bill S5 comes out.
Yes.
The impression everyone had was, don't worry. They're on our side.
People were cautious, but...
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And then people said, but wait, they're banning flavors. It says here they had categories: desserts, confectionery, candy, cannabis. I don't know if I'm missing any, but yeah, so people saw that and they're like, whoa, they're going to ban flavors. Like, no. They're just talking about labels, making it less attractive, but you're going to be able to do all the flavors that you do. Everybody.
Yeah, and let's not forget that the CVA, as well as other people, were part of a conference call with Health Canada. After the bill was submitted, they were part of a conference call with Health Canada, and the people from Health Canada were explaining to them, right, the different aspects of the law. And what does this mean in practical terms? What does Health Canada have in mind when they wrote this down? Mm-hmm. And that was the reason why people were being cautiously optimistic, because they got that information in that call, where it was like, no, we're not saying we're banning these flavors. We're saying, in terms of promotion, you'd still be able to mix these flavors, but you wouldn't be able to promote such and such flavor as like a strawberry cheesecake, or as a, nerds candy style thing, or whatever, it would be like,
exactly,
make the flavor, but just find a way to package it that doesn't promote that flavor.
And so fast forward now to about a couple of days ago, I don't know, it was like February 24th or something, I believe. There's this legislative summary that comes out. It's sent to all the senators, and it provides them with a overview, global overview of the discussion, the laws, the reason for being, and things they need to consider and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now everybody's panicking. The flavors are getting banned. Everybody's jumping to conclusions. They're like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah, because the language in the document that was sent out is a lot broader than what was even in the law. So, which I completely understand why people are freaking out. Because what's going on? Has Health Canada's position changed since the phone call with the CBA and with other partners in the industry? Like, or is this just another misinterpretation? But there's definitely cause for concern.
And I immediately went on the Parliament's website, asked them to send me the document. It's available to anyone who requests it. And one of the parts that I saw immediately that I never heard about prior to that moment was, and I'll just read the bullet point right here, requires manufacturers to submit information to the Minister of Health in relation to a vaping product before it can be sold. Mm-hmm. Now, that was nowhere in the initial readings of Bill S5. And this comes up. And it is so open to discussion that it can mean anything. It could be everything and anything. Mm-hmm. Your juice needs to get approved. Your vape kit needs to be approved. China might. It sounds like the FDA deeming regulations are coming to Canada. Like potentially. Hope not. Hope there's still. I hope still they see that there is science to back up. A reason for them not to make it more restrictive.
Right, because if there's like some kind of like you said, an FDA style application process for the mods and for the juices, that is going to be an expensive process that they might be refused, etc. Because I think what a lot of people thought the feds would do instead was maybe just set out minimum, not guidelines, but minimum requirements for instance, for juice makers,
right.
to meet before that they can put something on sale to the public, so in terms of like the conditions within which, the product is made, et cetera,
Right. Clean room certification level.
Exactly.
Ingredients must be X.
XYZ. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You didn't buy it at a flea market. You're getting it through reputable sellers, et cetera, et cetera.
And the government could easily go to who does the quality of e-juice? Is it the ECTA or is it the?
Yeah, it's the Electronic Cigarette Trade Association of Canada. They're the ones that set out all the standards, and in terms of like juices, the quality standards, etc. So they were a movement within the industry to legitimize the industry, to set minimum standards and guidelines. For instance, like juice makers that wanted to be ECTA approved would have to meet those guidelines, and then they could put the ECTA logo on their product or on their website or whatever,
Right.
So testing of juices.
But to get back to the reason I mentioned them is because they would be able to say things like, because when it comes to making e-juice, there's certain things that we need to make sure happen, like stop using dyes and coloring your juice.
Yeah.
For example, that could clearly be sensible regulation that says no e-juice manufacturer shall use coloring. It's not needed anyway. And another thing could be some flavors have been known to have higher levels, although compared to cigarette, they're still extremely low, but levels of acetone or diacetyl. And people have moved off of those and gone to the safer ones. And that could be the sensible legislation. But instead, what we're seeing is you'll go through the minister and, I guess no, let me correct that. I hope that's the path it takes, right? That they consult the experts rather than someone coming along saying, save the children, they all love menthol and candy, and ban it all.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole save the children thing has been pretty terrible for a host of issues, not just vaping. But yeah, in this particular case, again, it's this notion that, look, I agree that, there are elements in the vape industry that really promote a very childish, very immature, adolescent look, lifestyle, etc. And
Christina,
yeah.
You know what?
What?
The Senator Petitclerc.
Yeah.
She, in her initial, when she first started out, she didn't know what vaping was, so she published a little story where she visits a vape shop in Canada, Ottawa maybe, and she says she was amazed by the amount of things that were there, but she also had a concern because she saw, it's not Little Kitty,
Hello Kitty?
Hello Kitty vape pen. She said she saw a Hello Kitty vape pen, and she said that's why, need to make sure we stop marketing. Like, who made a Hello Kitty vape pen?
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, it's kind of, on the one hand, I'm of two minds of this, On the one hand, I get it because, the biggest lovers of Hello Kitty aren't even children.
Women.
It's like middle-aged women, that are like all Hello Kitty crazy. So I get it. But on the other hand, I also get it when people worry that will be attractive to children, So at the end of the day, the industry has to accept the fact that they are selling a product that is targeted to reduce harm for people who are smokers, right? And if we accept that, like the biggest, most important role for vaping products to play is to serve as a harm reduction tool for smokers, then we have to accept that gadgets and gimmicks and trends and things like that are anathema to vaping. We're not here to make things look awesome and cool. I'm not opposed to awesome and cool. I like awesome and cool stuff too, but that's not our number one reason for being. Our number one reason for being is to help people have an easier time breaking their tobacco habit. So a Hello Kitty vape pen might be fun and nice and all, but is it strictly necessary? No.
and it plays into the save the children, right away.
Exactly. You're just giving ammunition to people who would love nothing more than to undermine vaping, to go to town.
And I'd love to, but I wouldn't, put on blast any companies. But it's like, some of them have no clue. Actually, I've heard stories where advocates approach and say, why are you guys selling this juice? And they're like, well, it sells, and why not? They have no clue. Yeah. They're in it for the money, right? So you have the advocates, the people who believe that it's a harm reduction and you have the other people who are like, it's making money, it's cool, it's fun, woo.
Yeah, exactly. Which is fair enough, but that's when people within the industry have to organize. I mean, for me, like one of the important things is not stocking the kinds of products in the shop that would cater to that whole aspect, that would promote that style of vaping, for instance. So if retailers stop buying it, but then again, you're putting the onus on retailers. Retailers need to make money too. So
I'd be really curious to know the numbers and see how good are those people doing now in a regulated environment like Quebec. Because fads and things like that, you need to publicize, you need to market, you need to promote how cool your product is in order to get it. And when marketing and promotion is yanked from you, and then you're told all these different regulations, telling you it's illegal to share testimonials, share health information as far as a vape shop is concerned.
Right.
And so that extends to juice makers and everyone else. They're not allowed to share, all these benefits. That could potentially just kill your business. It might not work after a while. You're going to lose the followings that you've built.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the day, it affects everybody. And that's why I think everybody should be on board. And
absolutely.
As far as harm reduction, because other people will argue that fun, cool labels. I'm an adult. I should be able to choose. They'll bring arguments to the contrary, and we always see that.
The thing is, in an ideal world, that would be true. I would be one of those people arguing it too. Because, of course, I like Hello Kitty. I'm a 40-year-old woman, like I like customizing stuff. Who doesn't? Who doesn't like to buy skin for their cell phone? People like customizing things. And the generations around today of 30 and 40-year-olds are not like our parents, right? The internet has changed the way people consume, and we like to have personalized, very fancy, very stylish things. But sadly, we can't afford to allow ourselves to start defending that aspect when it comes to vaping. Because it's like I said before, it is our Achilles heel, and it's the part of the industry that completely discredits any positioning with regards to vaping as a harm reduction tool, and it gives ammunition to our detractors. So because people are screaming, what about the children? Well, then we have to step it up and start taking things seriously.
You know what? About two people died during this podcast smoking cigarettes.
Oh, snap, John. That's grim.
One death every 14 minutes. That's the statistics, and I'm taking this from the actual Bill S5 and the different information they sent out.
Yeah.
37,000 people die in Canada a year from tobacco smoke and tobacco-related illnesses.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very grim.
And the cost to that is $17 billion in healthcare costs.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, if vaping gets so regulated that it becomes inaccessible for a majority of consumers, like people like, for instance, my mom, or our mom, I should say, who was a 2 to 3 pack a day smoker, and we're talking like has tried everything in the book to try to quit smoking, all to no avail, has now been cigarette free for a year and a half thanks to vaping. But let me tell you, this is not someone who would start doing an enormous amount of legwork to try to get their vape juices, etc. If it became too complicated, she's a 60-year-old woman. If it became too complicated, she would just stop. She'd go back to the cigarettes. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's easy to buy a pack of cigarettes. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have to keep that in mind. Hell, it's true for me too. It's not just her. It's true for me too. I've been vaping since April of 2015. Haven't had a cigarette since then. But if it became extremely complicated for me to find a juice that I could tolerate, you better believe it. There are packs of cigarettes in every corner store. You know what I mean? It's not complicated. So it's terrible. This is the gravity of the issue that we're talking about.
Well, I really enjoyed our first podcast.
So did I.
I think we should do some more now. I think we got 45 minutes, so it makes for a pretty good podcast. I hope those who will end up listening find some value in what we're trying to accomplish here, and hopefully we could do this on perhaps a weekly basis, if not more. I know there's a lot of stuff that we want to talk about, so this one call shows it. We were jumping all over the place. Bill S5,
Yep.
provincial, je me souviens. Yeah, so more information to come for everyone who perhaps wants to know when these podcasts will be coming up. We'll reveal that and let everybody know.